tecnologia de ponta. Ponta
Tem que ser registrado isso.
Tem que ser registrado. Olha aí, tá tudo emendado aqui, ó.
Ponta de zero para arrumar o...
Sim, olha, nem no Brasil tem isso, tá?
Não tem mesmo, não.
É, tecnologia de ponta.
Isso é recuperado.
Passa aí.
2.5 minutes after launch. You couldn't have asked for a nicer launch. Now, the one thing I like to point out to folks is there's actually two separate geographic locations in this area of Florida. We're on Merritt Island, Florida. This is not the Cape. The only reason I point that out is because people call it the Cape all the time. In fact, the new TV series called The Cape happens to be filmed here. That still don't make it the Cape. This is the species make their home here than any place in America outside of the Everglades. We've got 15 endangered species and 310 types of birds. So keep your eyes open because you might see some pretty unusual animals. New hatch, I haven't had a count, so we're right close to 50 young birds. Back in 1981, we launched our first space shuttle, the Orbiter Columbia. And ever since then, that's been our main activity here at Kennedy Space Center. So let's talk about what a shuttle is.
The shuttle is the most versatile space vehicle ever designed. It takes off like a rocket, orbits like a space
tank, carries fuel to power the orbiter's three main engines. About 8 minutes after launch, the main engine's work is complete. The external tank is then released and breaks up in the atmosphere over the Indian Ocean.
So a little more than 8 minutes after launch, the orbiter is by itself, in orbit above the Earth. That's why we say we launch a shuttle, but we land an orbiter.
You know, Sally, sometimes people ask, why is the external tank orange? Well, we used to paint it, but we discovered if we didn't, it was 600 pounds lighter. And we want to keep the shuttle's weight as light as possible so we can fly more payload.
After all, the whole point of launching a shuttle is to get the orbiter into space, where it can do useful work. The more experiments or satellites it can carry, the more work it can do. We'll talk about some of that work a little later.
As part of the ground crew, I help prepare orbiters for their next mission. And let me tell you, you develop a healthy respect for what an orbiter can do. You're talking about a highly durable space plane that can fly 25 times the speed of sound. This bird... Hey, you better believe it. We're not even 45 foot long. That cargo bay is nearly 70 feet long. The flag and the bicentennial symbol on this side of the southern side of the vehicle assembly building were painted there in 1970. Excuse me. Let's get the right one, Dale. Discovery is in space doing its job. An upgrade gives the orbiter the ability to stay in space for 30 days and also hook up with the space station. The next thing we're going to talk about is a crawler transporter, and only one of them's here. The other one's at APAD. I don't know if it's up on the pad yet or not. They went out there. I'm going to play through the commentary, and then I'll refresh it when we get out there nearer that transporter. The reason I want to talk about it here with the commentary is I don't know if that transporter is still at the bottom of the pad or they've moved it up on the surface of the pad. So if you get an idea of what it looks like here, then when we get out there, regardless of what position it's in, you'll have a better idea of what we're talking about when we get talking about the transporters.
Now, if you remember, a while back Al asked a question, how do you move 12 million pounds of shuttle and platform to the launch pad? If you look over to your right, you'll see the answer. The crawler transporter is the biggest tracked vehicle in the world. A crawler weighs about 6 million pounds, unloaded, and has a surface area about the size of a baseball diamond. 2 large diesel engines, which power electrical motors, turn its treads. Operating a vehicle of that size takes a highly trained crew of about 20 engineers and technicians.
We'll give you a better look at years to go 1,000 miles. This eastern side of the building has bay 1 and 3. That's the only place we assemble shuttles. Oh, goody, they brought my piece of equipment back that I've been wanting to show people. They never believe me unless you see this. You notice how the track's all crushed up? Well, it can't stay that way because then we would cause friction on those big tracks. So what do? We stir it up. How do we stir it up? The answer's on the left. A John Deere tractor with a Hera.
And if you look real close, you'll say he was just tickled to death I told that story. Of course, I couldn't show it to him. It just got parked there yesterday, I guess, or early this morning. Okay, let's talk. 1 on 41 should launch towards the end of this month. The Titan IV down on Complex 40, that has the Cassini instrument aboard. That's a piece of equipment we want to send all the way to Saturn, to the planet Saturn, to take a look at. That we hope we can get off by October. If we miss that launch during the October opening, we have to wait quite a few years before Saturn comes close enough again to make that launch.
That tall tower you see in the distant right is part of Launch Complex 41, where we launch unmanned exploratory spacecraft. It is currently operated by the United States Air Force and supports all versions of the Titan rocket. Now I bet most of you have seen those amazing close-up pictures of Mars. Well, those pictures were brought to you by the Viking missions, which NASA launched at Generation
Flights. This is their 20th year in space. They're only 5 billion miles away.
We are now approaching launch pads 39A and 39B, where we launch the space shuttle.
100 to the pad.
Now that's an 18-degree incline to the surface of the pad. The transporter has a hydraulic system, so when it takes the load up to the top of the pad, it keeps it level. The front end of the transporter goes up at about 20 feet. The rear end comes up to nearly 26 feet. I hope I'm not disturbing anybody. There's folks on the bus that are trying to hear the commentary. Thank you.
And the shuttle during the frequent lightning storms we get here in Florida. Another interesting feature is the 290-foot high water storage tank next to the pad. Just before the shuttle engines ignite, the tank releases 300,000 gallons of water.
I can say just open the valve and there it is. They don't use pumps. There are pumps that are operating on a deluge system on the rest of the structure, and those pumps are kicking along at the rate of 140,000 gallons a minute. So you get a lot of steam.
S'il y avait une navette, nous ne laisserait pas se arrêter ici.
Ah bon?
Ah non, c'est...
C'est interdit.
Interdit.
So that section of fixed structure with the hammerhead crane on top and the lightning mast is actually an upper section out of the old Saturn V. The steel section there is only 347 feet. Well, the tower for the Saturn V, 247 feet, they'll get it right. That's to the top of the lightning mast, 347 feet to the top. The steel section is 247 feet, they'll get it right yet. But the Saturn V launch tower was 380 feet high. Then it had a crane on top of that and lightning mast on top of that. When you put the Saturn V together, it ended up 363 feet high. And you're going to see it laying down inside the building in a few minutes. Oh, here's a gator on the right. Just the other side of these birdies is the gator. There you go.
They think of these launches.
How far is this plane? Come out.
Now we can get a real good view of the pad. And you see the platform sitting up on pedestal. The two other steel pieces sticking up on top of the platform, those are tail service masts. If I had a shuttle there, it'd be standing straight up with the tail between the tail service masts. If you look real close, you'll see some pipes sticking up behind there on the back of the platform. On top of the platform, you'll see pipes with a piece of metal on top. There's 6 of them. That's where the water comes out, the 300,000 gallons worth. And those pieces of metal flatten it out and make it into a water blanket. Again, to suppress the sound. Now you can see the incline to the pad real well. And when the transporter goes up there, everything stays level. If you were riding the platform, you wouldn't know you were moving, let alone going uphill, because they don't fly uphill at 1 mile an hour, by the way. They get real slow. Somewhere around 225 feet above the ground. Well, I got news for you. That night, I couldn't discern that thing moving as much as a golf ball. I didn't get any movement out of it. I mean, we went uphill just as smooth as could be. Now you can see the transporter a little closer. It's electrically powered. You can see the 2 electric motors on the front of the set of tracks here. There's actually 2 motors for each set. There's one in front, one in back. That drive a shaft that turns a worm gear, that turns a 6-foot gear, that turns a bunch of little gears that makes it go down the road. Did I mention, you know, they said when it's loaded that thing goes 1 mile an hour. Did I mention it goes twice as fast empty? 2 miles an hour. Yeah, really flying along per pound race. Ho, ho, ho. Drive a bus, you do know how to get mileage out of stuff, don't you? Oh, when you got all the doors open on one of the bays there, it's 456 feet from top to bottom. You better have them all open to get the launcher out for the Saturn V. With the shuttle, you only need the bottom 4 doors and then the 3 doors in the bottom 3 in the narrow section. The other day, that's the reason I say bottom 3 is because I got corrected the other day. The guy says, well, if you open the top 3, you won't make it. I said, that sounds logical. Here's the press site on the left. We get a great turnout of reporters. They just love to come here. Apollo 11, the first time we landed on the moon, there was over 3,400 reporters packed in that place. How would you like to answer all those questions? If you were here before...
science and space committee in Congress becoming president. This was never used.
How often are you going to eat in here, right?
Look at the turtle that's going over there. Whoops. Alligators? There we got it. Those are,
You know, I saw two manatees around the front.
I see this one.
Welcome aboard. You are on the middeck of the Space Shuttle Explorer. The lockers you see are located directly below the commander and pilot work area. They contain food, supplies, and experiments. To the left of these lockers is the galley. Once the water is locked, the overhead payload bay doors are open and remain open while the vehicle is in orbit. The mirrored surface of these doors act as a radio. The workstations of the Space Shuttle's commander and pilot. This is where the two would sit at the control panels during launch, landing, and special maneuvers. The commander would sit in the left-hand chair, and the pilot would sit to his right. All switches on Explorer's panels are in the exact configuration to reflect a recent landing. The Space Shuttle re-enters the atmosphere at approximately 17,000 miles per hour. It reduces its speed in a series of S-turns as it glides toward the Earth. Sonic waves set by the waters of Saturn cause air compression resulting in ultrasonic fluids, signifying the landing is imminent.
Touchdown.
standing still.